Oh, Peter Thiel? Yo, Peter Thiel on Piers Morgan? How organic. How organic. Yeah, let's go. Okay, finally, Peter Thiel. I love Peter Thiel. Our homosexual. Dude, he's so unhealthy looking. That's another sticker. Look at him. He looks so unhealthy. It's kind of crazy, honestly. Dude, he's so gross looking. Anyway, it's like, it's good to age. Good to age with grief. You know the best thing too? I'll tell you the best thing. These micromanagers and people like that, the more power they get, the less they can deal with people like the less they can deal with people who's making fun of them. Now they have to deal with real problems. Now they have to deal with like and running things, and so they're forced to like ignore. They're forced to ignore people like just running on them and being rude about what they look like. So now they can't. Like he sued Gawker. When Gawker exposed that he was a homosexual, he sued Gawker. He made them bankrupt. And he could do that because he had nothing going on. Now he can't really do that. Busy. He's busy, you know, doing things. Face is all fucked up. He looks like the guy, the Nazi Meltdown Jones, yeah. Yeah, honestly, he looks so unhealthy, dude. It's kind of sad. Compare me to him. Like, look at me compared to him. I just look healthy. He looks disgusting. I look super healthy. He looks disgusting. Isn't that crazy? All right. And soon I'll have my hair back, and he'll still look gay and ugly.
Now, Peter Thiel, welcome to Uncensored.
He looks like a zombie. Why is his face peeling off? Probably AIDS. It's probably honestly AIDS. Like, not. I'm not even gonna lie. He probably has AIDS. Remember, guys, powerchat.live/Balltown. I don't think anybody sent any money this whole week. Alright, powerchat.live/Balltown. If you like the content, let's send me money now, okay? I'm fighting the woke right. I'm fighting the woke right, and you are basically you suck and stupid and you're okay. It makes Piers Morgan look normal. Well, Piers Morgan looks normal. He always looks normal. But he looks like he has AIDS. It does look like Peter Thiel has AIDS.
Thanks for having me.
I remember back in 2016, I wrote a column on the day that Trump did his announcement he was going to run, in 2015 actually. And I said then he has a habit of having the last laugh. But from the moment he did that announcement that he's going to run for president, all hell broke loose. And it's fair to say most people in your world at the time ran a mile from even hinting they might want to support him or endorse him in any way. You showed a lot of personal courage in doing that. What do you feel today, given he's just had this extraordinary win, a complete sweep across the board, given this enormous mandate? Do you feel a sense of vindication that what you saw in Trump 8 years ago is now what so many Americans see?
Well, I always think that there are...
Loving Judy Hopps there? Yeah, trying to make people like actually enjoy the show. I figured let's add in a GIF of Judy Hopps as the backing.
I feel a sense of relief. I feel I would be extremely unhappy if the other person had won. I think my expectations are somewhere properly intermediate. They are not. They're not that we're going to solve all the problems we have. But yes, I think there is a way that the ancien regime, that is liberalism, is really exhausted. The 1990s are over. The 20th century is over. The 2020 election was not a return to normalcy, but it was, in retrospect, a last stand for the ancien regime with its very ancien president. And I think that's kind of what's...
Bro, I'm zoning out already. I've evolved. Over the course of 3 years of doing this, or whatever, I've evolved and I have built up a just natural community to Jewish, like, I literally just zone out and I don't pay attention to what they're saying. It's actually kind of crazy. I've grown, my DNA has upgraded to literally just filter out Jewish nonsense. Isn't that crazy?
So, these elections in many ways are more framed by the negative.
Yo, thanks for the follow.
If you ask me to make a whole bunch of
Thank you for the follow, refracting goo. Everybody hit the follow button.
Arguments. That's a Democratic question. I can make anti-Harris arguments. The Democrats were good at making anti-Trump arguments, and I think there was a way that this center-left.
He looks like a wet animatronic. He looks like something that would pop out in Five Nights at Freddy's. He's the final freak at Five Nights at Freddy's. The animal, stuffed animal that pops out. Imagine if you photoshopped him purple and gave him fur. He'd be the final animatronic that pops out to kill you.
Had just gotten very exhausted and wasn't working on many different levels, and in some ways I sense.
Yeah, he should take that prevents weight. Take some Ostarine.
That was already true in 2016, and
he's like his hero. He's like his hero Nietzsche, dying of syphilis.
It is even
like his hero.
It is even more true today.
Yeah, I mean, I felt this election in the end came down to cost of living, no question. Americans were feeling the pinch in their wallets, and they backed Trump better than Harris to sort that out. I felt the immigration crisis on the border was clearly a massive issue for many people. But I also felt that it signified, and I think you were kind of hinting at this a bit, it signified the death of wokeism, of what your friend Elon Musk calls the woke mind virus. It was almost like the third part of the equation here.
The death of the woke mind virus, huh?
Of so much of what the woke movement stands for, which has often been based not on common sense or reality, but just a kind of nonsensical.
You guys hate the woke mind virus?
I'm thinking when I hear them talking about my truth, for example, over the truth, stuff like that. Or when they try and say that, of course, it's fine for trans athletes to compete in women's sport, etc., etc. When we saw the effectiveness of Trump's campaign ad of Kamala's for they, them, Trump's for you, you put all that together. Did you feel that the kind of the woke mind virus, for want of a better phrase, is not been killed off, but has certainly been massively put back in its box?
One can hope that is the case. Certainly, there are ways in which the identity politics as a political issue seems exhausted. It is Trump gained among both Jews and Muslim voters. That's
finally.
Yeah.
Jews are 0% of the population, and they have 4 votes in the entire country. 4 Jewish people in the entire country, and 3 of them voted for Trump. That's so exciting.
There are ways that 7% of the voters in the United States are African American women, and maybe more of them voted for Harris, but 93% of the voters are not. And
voting isn't even. Wake up! Do you think somebody who goes to Walmart in the middle of the night who wears pajamas and is fat is actually given a chance to rule the country? No. Never. There's never been a chance for somebody who's like fat and ugly who goes to Walmart and wears pajamas and has tattoos. Do you think people with tattoos are allowed to have any say over the running of the country? Here's a little tip. Here's a little hint for you. People with tattoos aren't able to have any sort of a... And they never will because they have tattoos. People with tattoos, you can't trust them. Women with tattoos, don't trust them. Okay? Never trust a woman with a tattoo. Absolute.
The
absolute scum.
And there's a way that perhaps identity politics only worked in a pre-internet world.
Unless you have face tattoos. If you're a guy with face tattoos, you're going to be able to vote. Your vote counts.
The 2008 Obama election was the last pre-internet election where the internet, and what happens in the internet is you can't micro-target voters. So in 2008, Obama could still tell the black voters they should vote for him because he was black. He could tell the white voters they should vote for him because he was post-racial. And people didn't notice that there were these 2 radically different messages to different sets of voters. By the time you get to Hillary Clinton in 2016, this sort of 1990s style micro-targeting doesn't work. She can't tell the women to vote for her because she's a woman and the men to vote for her because she's post-gender. That looks ridiculous. And then by the time Kamala tries to even have slightly different accents with different audiences. It all looks completely absurd. So I think that's
Can't believe
one of the
Jimbo sold half his link. Jimbo literally sold half his link before we go to 1,000. We're about to go to $1,000 per link. $1,800.
things that feels very different from 15, 16 years ago.
Barack Obama raped me.
Another way to
real?
articulate this, if we look at it from the vantage point of 2016, one would have, if you had sort of a demographic determinism, you would have said that the Republicans were never going to win another election because the Republicans were old and white, and the
His
Democrats
face is nightmarish.
were young and diverse. And
Finally, the non-whites. Finally, the non-whites are going to be Republicans. That's good because the whites are dying. The whites have died.
8 years from 2016 and 2024, a lot of the Republican voters were going to be dead. And because the demographics determine...
Look, if you want to know the future, look at Mexico and look at Argentina. Most of the people are brown. And then there's an elite upper crust of white people and Jews. Don't have jobs, but have an insane amount of money. And that's like what America's going to be like. It's going to be like brown people and then white people and Jews magically just have. Everybody else, the whites who don't do it, who don't make a ton of money, just die. All that's left is just some weird white people and some weird Jewish people and then a bunch of brown people.
The way people vote, it would be impossible for Trump to even do as well as in 2016. He would do much less well. And the Republicans were never going to win another election. And so to win in 2024, there were millions and millions of people you had to actually convince to change their minds. And this was, it was Jewish voters and Muslim voters and Latino voters and women voters.
Jewish voters really brought, we need to talk about Jewish people a lot. We haven't talked about Jewish people enough. We need to give Jewish people the credit for voting.
African-American voters, young voters. There were all sorts of people where you had to make an argument and you had to get people to change their mind. And in some very odd sense, the center-left zombie establishment no longer believes in reason, in making arguments, in convincing people, and it just sort of gave away the whole playing field on that dimension. And and again, there were as you alluded to earlier, there were these fairly straightforward arguments about inflation, immigration. I would also say incompetence.
Yeah.
Those were the three I's, and they were not engaged in. They were not rebutted in any way whatsoever.
There's also, I think, with Trump, I watched him at the Notre Dame reopening in Paris, and I was very struck by every single head turned to stare at Trump when he came in a room full of huge public figures from around the world. He was by far the biggest star, even bigger than our own future king, Prince William, and so on. And they're all desperate to hug him and shake his hand and be around him and so on. And it just reminded me that what Trump brings with him is he brings a swagger. And I've always felt that America is actually at its best when it has that slight swaggering confidence, and it's at its worst when it looks like it's having a crisis of confidence. And I did feel that Joe Biden, in his
who watches this garbage? It's so boring.
increasingly kind of degenerative state, was exuding an air of a shambolic America, where the president couldn't even stand on his own 2 feet. I mean,
You
do
like
you feel
the
that?
background I have? Hourshot.live/Paul.
Yeah, there's a lot one can say about this. There's something about the United States that is still this. I don't like the word exceptional country, but there is still something about it that is singularly important. There's some sense in which the president is the mayor of the U.S., but the dictator or leader of the world, and it matters maybe even more to the rest of the world who's president than to the people inside the country, which is much hard. It's much easier to do.
My dad keeps sending me Mark Andreessen podcasts and Thiel talks. It's so bad, man. Yeah, thank you. With Normgroids in your family, you just got to be like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Things outside the country
Because they're trying to bond. He's trying to bond with
the country in a lot of ways.
I appreciate
it. It's in some ways important to the whole world who's president. There are, and there's sort of all these different dimensions where this is likely to manifest. Probably probably the free speech standards that get pushed, or the censorship standards. So many of these were pushed by center-left elements of the U.S. deep state. And you have the Brazilian judge who banned Twitter.
Yeah.
And, was he really acting on his own volition, or was this through a center-left U.S. State Department affiliated NGO? And there's a sense that all of these things might come to a dramatic end. So I think it, in all sorts of different dimensions, it has repercussions for the entire world that are maybe even bigger than for the United States. And so yeah, in a European context, it's nobody really cares.
Pull it together, please. Please pull it together, dude.
Who's the president of Europe?
Right.
Even though in theory it would seem like that's in theory pretty important. It's not.
Most people wouldn't have a clue who that is.
Certainly not in the United States.
Yeah. It's interesting when I've looked back at your say last 25 years, quite hard, and probably deliberately hard from your point of view, to pigeonhole you into any classic political box. I mean, I don't think you're a classic Republican or a classic Democrat or any of these things. It seems to me you like to sing from your own song sheet to a degree. I would say that Elon's quite similar like that. Joe Rogan is another one I would say is quite similar. Trump himself has flirted around really in the political edges in that way. Do you want to be pigeonholed? I mean, do you like to see yourself as a Republican, or do you prefer to be an individual who decides when you see a leader you like?
Well, I don't think either of those are necessarily. It's not. You don't simply want to be somebody who falls in line in a regimented way. I don't think there's necessarily anything especially virtuous in being some eccentric individual. But what I try to do, what I aspire to do, is to think for myself through these various issues, and then there are there are places where I've come to question the consensus, and then that leads me to what's seen as a eclectic set of views. But I try to approach things from a first principles point of view. Think things through very rigorously. I've known Elon for quarter century, since 2000, and for and I think he's
Bro, please make this interesting, please make it more exciting. Talk about like Hitler or something.
A very thoughtful person.
Why do these guys always have a stutter? I don't know, but it's something wrong with them. Something's wrong with these people. Very, very wrong with these people.
For a long time, I would have placed him as more of a, not doctrinaire liberal, but certainly, Tesla was a electric vehicle company, and it was more aligned with the Democrats and with people who believed in climate change than with these retrograde.
Why does this man look so gross? Gay AIDS. Gay AIDS. It was called homosexual AIDS. Having gay sex.
And
being gay.
So yeah, Elon is it's sort of an extraordinary instance of someone who at some point decided.
I still can't believe his gay boyfriend killed himself, actually. Almost unbelievable how his gay boyfriend got into a fight with Peter Thiel, and then the same night his gay boyfriend jumped off a roof, killing himself tragically. Gay boyfriend, after arguing with Peter Thiel, decided to take his own life by throwing himself off a building, murdering himself. Very sad, but almost unbelievable how he killed his gay boyfriend, argued with him, and magically killed himself. Very odd, but that's life.
He was going to start thinking for himself, and in some ways he was singularly important in what happened the last.
Guess my gay boyfriend just killed himself. Time to get a new one.
Few years in the United States, but then he was also representative of.
What if we had billionaires but they weren't gay? I'd like that. Well, it's like, look, I don't have anything against money. I like money. Money's nice to have. But like the amount of success you have to be this level of success needs to be, there's something wrong with you, kind of, honestly. Like there's a certain sort of obsessiveness where most people will get to a certain level of success and fame and be like, all right, well, I can chill out I have a family. I'm gonna do this crazy thing. There's a certain level of like mental illness that's required to be like, and that's not to say that I don't think there should be allowed to be billionaires. Personally, I don't really care. But there is a certain level of like not chill, like not normal, like obsession that any sort of greatness or any sort of is predicated upon. I think it's in society today. In order to become a billionaire, you kind of have to be evil to a certain level and gay, But I don't really care. It's not like I don't lose sleep over it. I don't really like get upset by it. I don't really like envy these people. These people are kind of like a function of reality being demented.
Of a lot of people, but I think there's some sense in which,
I think I wouldn't also be against like money over a certain level. The problem with like I wouldn't be against it on a certain level where like, oh, you make over $900 million, you can't have more than $900 million. The problem with that is it starts out at that level and then it gets, oh, you can't have more than 800 million. And all the while the money gets less and less valuable. All the while, inflation goes up and up. And until it's eventually like, oh, you can't have anything. You can't have anything. You can't have a house. You can't have a house that's a nice, or else you're. So I'm against it on that level, not on like a fundamental level. On the level of like, there should be a hard cap on like wealth. I think that's a healthy, fine thing to do. The only problem is that it never stops there. Start there and then you go, well, it should be a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, a little lower, until it's like literally like an insane amount of stuff taken away. It's a bad precedent. Even though it's a good idea, it doesn't really work. And there's already, there's natural limits to people. Nobody really gets a free lunch. People who have a crazy amount of money, like, does he look too healthy to you? Does he look too happy to you? He kind of looks gay and miserable and like sick. So like it takes its toll having that much money. So, I don't really envy him. I also, I don't think he's really getting a free lunch. Is the mic cutting out? It might be. Let me turn it up a little bit here. There we go. I'll turn it up a little bit. Is this a cope? No, because I'm not too upset by it. I'm doing all right financially. I'm not a billionaire, but I'm doing all right. And it's all right. Some people have more stuff, right? Some people have more stuff in certain ways than me, and I have more stuff in certain ways than other people. My quality of life is higher than Peter Thiel's, honestly. Honestly, my quality of life is a lot higher. I'm a lot more free than him. And I pay with that. I pay in terms of I have much less money. I have much less money, and there's other things I don't have that he has. But I also don't have AIDS.
Which what the experts tell us, what the consensus tells us, has been shocking.
He's heard about the girl who took 100 dicks. He hears that porn star took 100 penises. She had sex with 100 men in a day. That just sounds like an average Friday to me, Peter Thiel.
Incorrect.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just the COVID crisis, but there's a way these things have come to
poor man's cope.
Last 4 or 5
Life
years.
is good. I'm a simple man, though. I'm a simple man. Some people want stuff like some people genuinely want, like they get mad that they don't have what Peter Thiel has. And I'm not that person. So I'm sure there are some people who would kill, or they would kill or be close to it. And they see about Peter Thiel, and for them, they suffer because they're not Peter Thiel. For me, I'm very comfy. I'm a simple person. I'm a country mouse.
A sort of crisis of legitimacy. Who do we believe in the United States, in the Western world? Do we believe the scientists, the experts, the deep state actors? And I think there's an opening, an openness to rethinking these things that has not existed in a very long time.
Well, I think you and Elon are kind of their nightmare, really, because you've come along and you obviously have bigger brains than most of them put together, which must be terrifying if you're them on the receiving end, because you have this forensic laser way of analyzing stuff, which I see all the time from the stuff that you talk about and post and so on, both of you. I want to play a clip.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't.
My vibe. Oi, 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 oi. It's like a bad British rock song. Oi, 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 oi.
This is Piers, this is a very flattering description, and I don't want to say that I'm that much smarter than other people or anything like this. I think there are, there are certain kinds of questions I've been asking for a long time. I don't know, just to give one example, where I've been on this for maybe 16, 17 years now, is this question, this big picture question about the nature of science and technology, and is it progressing as quickly as advertised, or is it actually stagnant, slowed down on many dimensions, where we still have had progress around the world of bits, but not so much
the world of bytes,
these other atoms dimensions, and that was in some ways a straightforward kind of a question to ask. It was a very big picture question, but if you said that we were stagnating on many dimensions, then you would conclude that maybe.
Would you say that all science has failed? Would you say that all science has stopped? Deutsch Physik was replaced by Jewish Physik. Jewish physics replaced American and German physics and Aryan physics. And would you say all science has stalled ever since Jews took over in World War II?
We can't.
Why, yes, I would, Peter. Why, yes, I would. Why, yes, I would, Piers. I would say that. I would say that all science has stalled since World War II ended and Jews won.
Business as usual. If you do business,
oh yes, I would,
usual,
Peter. Why, yes, I would.
The younger generation will have should expect to have lives less good than their parents. You'd expect that the whole sort of middle class compact in our societies, in which young people are expected to do better than their parents, is breaking down, and there's sort of a way that our institutions will not work and will derange. And so I had this idea that something has gone very wrong with progressivism in the science sense, progressivism in the technology sense, that things are not progressing as advertised. And this was not there's obviously normative implications, but to start with, this was just a descriptive question. How fast is science progressing? And we had the tagline we came up with was, they promised us flying cars. All we got was 140 characters, not to
ooh, boom, boom.
Downplay the importance of Twitter, and maybe you had to free up Twitter and change it into X to have any chance of getting.
Yo, thank you.
Stank Snatcher sent $10.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Stank Snatcher. Powerchat.live/Paultown. Leave a comment, question, concern.
Flying cars. But,
thoughts about Judy Hopps.
Things were stalled on all these areas, and that itself was
something has gone seriously wrong when people see homosexuality as benign. It's true. That's true. It's facts.
If these institutions were not working, that was a big deal. And this is always a kind of perspective I have on let's say the woke issues, the culture war issues, and things like this. I wrote a book in the 1990s. David Sachs, my friend David Sachs, and I wrote this book, The Diversity Myth, and it was sort of an updated version of a Buckley, God and Man at Yale, sort of a critique of multiculturalism, the politics of intolerance at Stanford University, and sort of what had gone wrong in these college campuses. And we were focused on all these identity politics, political correctness, culture wars issues from 3 decades ago. And there's a way in which it was prophetic, and there's a way in which you don't want it to be prophetic. You want people to listen to you.
Peter, I have a clip.
They didn't listen to us, and then.
Well, I've got a clip of
we were
you
like Cassandras. We had these warnings.
Yeah, I've got a clip of you talking about that. Let's take a look.
Play a clip about the woke mind virus.
I'll tell you what the problem is with looking for racism everywhere, because.
Play me the clip about the woke mind virus. Let's see if this man is diagnosed with woke mind virus. Paul, what are your thoughts on effective accelerationism? I don't even know what that means. I know about effective altruism, and it sucks, and it's a gay sex cult. What is effective accelerationism? Is it just like gay, like retarded things, like a woman who blow up a cell phone tower? Is it just gay, like jerking off about like, I'm gonna like I'm gonna put spikes in the road in the forest, and then people will run over spikes in the road.
Because when you start looking for racism everywhere and you start finding racism everywhere, it's only a.
I've seen people with ACC on their name in their bio, but they're all gay retards. So I don't know. If that's what it is, it's all stupid. If that's what it is, it's all dumb. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. I'm part of like the hard determinist. I'm just determinist. What's going to happen is going to happen, and I don't need to do anything for it to happen. I do what I want, okay? And the world changes, and I do what I want. And I'm not freaked out. I'm not trying to stop something. I'm not trying to stop something. I'm also not trying to start something. Well, the world goes on, okay? I'm just part of it. I'm not God. I'm not going to change the reality. I'm not God. I'm just the goat, okay?
Very small step to finding racists everywhere.
Give me 40 bodybuilders, and I will give you one downed wooden pole and one electric wire cut.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that if those racists are really out there, but I'm going to suggest to you that they really aren't. The problem.
Bro. The racists don't really exist. Dude, he's so gross. Look at him. He looks like Cillian Murphy in the 28 Years Later trailer. He looks like what Cillian Murphy looks like. It's like, this is Cillian Murphy before he gets infected, and this is Cillian Murphy when he gets infected.
Problems of racism, sexism, other forms of oppression have been vastly exaggerated, and as a result, people get unjustly accused.
Low ambition cope? No, I don't have low ambition. I wrote 7 books. I have multiple programs I've made. I've gone on multiple adventures, and I've taken a ton of risks. But my scope of stuff is personal. My scope is not being seen as some great mind or genius or lauded or loved in public. My goals are very personally driven.
Culture of complaint leads to a culture of blame.
That's not low ambition. I have very high ambition. But it's personal ambition. It's not ambition in terms of being loved by the public. I don't care about the public.
I mean, apart from the fact you've aged incredibly well, because that's 30 years
I'm
ago.
not God, just to go insane aura to talk about crypto. Buy Chainlink. I told you guys buy Chainlink at $10. I told you buy Chainlink at $12. Buy Chainlink now. Okay, it's $30 now. Buy it now. Buy Chainlink now. Put all your money to Chainlink and then forget about it for a year. You'll be rich. Trust me. You put $20,000, $400,000, you put $1 million in, you have at least $400,000. You have at least $400,000 in a year.
What do you think when you look back at that, Peter Thiel? Because you were bang on.
I'm always a little bit more self-critical. I think I was right.
Chainlink seems gay. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm the gay retard. Look, I can't explain it to you because I don't really care. But this is called the cup and handle, all right? What this is a sign, okay? And I talked about this. This is a sign. I talked about it when it was like right here. It was like right here. This is called the cup and handle, and this is on the week chart, okay? It's gonna pop off. It's gonna hit $1,000. Trust me, okay? Trust me. I told you about Solana before Solana was anything. I told people about Solana before Solana was anything. This is about to pop off to an insane level. You don't even understand. You don't even understand what it's gonna look like. This chart is gonna look like in a month, in 2 months. I guarantee you. This is legal, financial, and political advice. Okay, this is legal and financial advice. Buy Chainlink now.
About everything, but then I also think there were...
Is Ripple done mooning? I don't know. I haven't paid attention to Ripple.
I wasn't wrong, but there was a way in which I was not even wrong. And so the question I was not asking was this question I just alluded to about, let's say, scientific and technological progress.
I made so much money on Solana. Paul is right. And guess what? I love about my audience is they made so much money and none of them ever give it back to me. None of them ever donate. Oh, here's $50,000. Here's $50,000. Thank you for being right. Thank you for being right. Here's $50,000. Thank you, Anonymous. I appreciate it. As I complain, as I bitch and moan. Thank you. I appreciate $20. But nobody ever sends me $10,000 to say, hey, you were right. Thank you. You should do TA. No, TA is garbage. TA is trash, okay? TA is just for fun. I like to click lines and just do fun stuff. But no, I guarantee you, Chainlink, $4,000 end of the year. Easy.
There was a way the question of the universities was focused on the humanities, not on the sciences.
That's called smart money. Yeah, I know.
And maybe one needed to have this much broader.
I told you about H Bowden. Yeah, that's true. Forget about that. Okay, look, that was a joke. I was joking when I talked about H Bowden. I was joking. Okay, when I told you about Hunter Bowden, I was joking. That was a joke. Did you not understand? Are you autistic? This is serious.
For example,
unless it's a joke.
We just had.
Unless it's a joke later. Unless it turns out I wasn't actually being serious and I was joking. This is serious.
In the last year and a half, we had the university presidents, both Harvard and Stanford, were fired.
Yeah.
Claudine Gay, the Harvard one, was the sort of diversity plagiarist black woman. that there's sort of a very straightforward conservative critique you can have of Claudine Gay. But I think
Claudine Gay, nigga's named Gay.
important
No, not even ironically when I say that, nigga's named Gay.
was the Mark Tessier-Levine firing at Stanford, who was a old white male neurobiologist, neuroscientist, who, as far as I can tell, had basically engaged in completely fraudulent scientific research, falsified his data, stole tens of millions of dollars from the government. And so the Harvard one was humanities fraud, the Stanford one was science fraud. And I'm not
What happened to his face? AIDS, gay AIDS, syphilis and gay sex from, gay AIDS. Gay homosexual AIDS, God's punishment for his lifestyle. God's punishment happened to him. God's destruction upon his bloodline.
Science fraud was more important than the humanities fraud, but they were in some ways different sides
God's
of the same
punishment
coin.
upon him for his sin.
The way the universities
That's what happened.
often would deal with the question, why are we not studying Shakespeare, why we're not reading the great books, is, well, we're doing science. The science is more important than the humanities. And the broader critique I would have is that it has failed across the board, and that even these areas of science that were sort of a big part of the early modern project, the atheist liberal project of early modernity, have gotten exhausted and have failed.
Modernity.
And this is sort of the extraordinary crisis that
I hate modernity.
and then of course
Modernity, soy man, bug world.
one could describe.
I mean, it's interesting when you talk about the flying cars and things. I mean, I'll give you one example where we clearly haven't moved on. In fact, we've gone backwards fast, and that would be transatlantic travel. I knew the great Sir David Frost, who was the Frost-Nixon fame, and when he was doing a transatlantic show, one in London, one in New York, he used to get Concorde. It used to take 2 hours, 58 minutes to get from London to New York. He'd have breakfast in London, and he'd arrive in time to have breakfast in New York. It now takes me 7 hours.
Dude, how is that possible? We're not allowed to do that? Why can't we do that? That seems wrong. That's messed up. We used to be able to do it like faster? That's crazy.
Do the same journey, and that's 50 years later.
What happened?
And that's just one little example.
Yeah,
but that's an example of what you're talking about, right?
Sure. Perhaps one of the paradigmatic variations of accelerationism was just faster travel, and it was it went faster every decade from 1500 onwards. It was faster sailing ships, and then in the 19th century was faster trains, then faster cars, and
Guys, look, I'm Peter Thiel.
faster airplanes.
I'm Peter Thiel.
Planes by the 50s and 60s, and then you get the Concorde by the early 70s, and now that's regressed. And in some ways, if you include all the low-tech airport security measures and all these things, it's probably significantly slower than it was in the 1960s. So it's a very dramatic illustration of where things have actually regressed. But I think something like this is true of most areas of what we call science and technology. When I was an undergraduate at Stanford, I was class of '89 undergraduate, late '80s. In retrospect, it wasn't obvious at the time, but in retrospect, almost all engineering fields were bad ones to go into. You should not have gone to chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, aeroastro engineering. There was not going to be that much innovation in that area. You certainly shouldn't have gone into nuclear engineering. I think people had gotten the memo on that by the 1980s. And this world of bits was just not progressing. In electrical engineering, there was still some progress in semiconductors, but really the only field that worked in retrospect was computer science, which in the 1980s was, by the way, a very strange field.
Yeah.
Computer science was something people studied who flunked out of physics and math. And you have to, whenever people use, I'm in favor of science, I'm not in favor of science in scare quotes. And so computer science was like political science or social science or climate science, where the people teaching it had an inferiority complex and called it science because it was not. It was sort of this, and then it was this very strange thing that this was actually the one field that, where there was progress, but it was this narrow cone of progress around computers, software, internet, mobile internet, maybe crypto, maybe AI at this point. And there were some great companies that could be built. People could have successful careers in these areas. It was probably not quite enough to take our civilization as a whole to the next level, if we measure it in terms of these day-to-day things like the Concorde travel, or if we measure it in terms of per capita GDP or things like that.
Yeah, you mentioned computer science there. So Google have just announced this Willow quantum chip, which they claim can solve puzzles that would take the fastest supercomputer today 10 septillion years, a number that actually exceeds the age of the universe. I can't get my head around that. Can you?
Well, I don't know. There are sort of a lot of different things one could say about computer science. It is an area where there has been, some progress. I think we probably shouldn't just dismiss AI. So it's often, like in some ways, it's a symptom of our stagnation, that when we do have progress, we can't even believe that it's real. And so there's probably, I'm not saying that there's been none, but if one asks what the significance of this is, there's a way in which you can try to frame it in terms of this sort of narrow technical question, or we can frame it, metaphysically, maybe tells us something interesting about the nature of the universe. But the intermediate question that I would always like to ask is sort of the social, political, cultural, or even just economic question. How does this translate into higher per capita GDP? How does it translate into better standards of living for people? And that part is maybe there's some way it does, but it's pretty attenuated, pretty weak. That's the suspicion one has.
Is AI going to change the world fantastically well in the end, or is it potentially? I interviewed Professor Stephen Hawking before he died, who said that the biggest threat to mankind, he believed, was when AI learns to self-design, it's all over. Do you share that fear, or do you think it's an exciting, brave new world that will enhance everything?
Well, I suppose utopia and dystopia aren't the only options. I think it is an area where there has been real progress. It is, there's a dimension of it that's quite extraordinary. It's, if we had defined the holy grail of computer science for 70, 80 years, it was passing the Turing test. And the Turing test is where you have a computer that can pretend and can fool you into thinking that it's a human being. And it's a little bit of a fuzzy line what the Turing test represents, but it was basically passed by ChatGPT in late 22, early 23. And so that is a very, there is something probably surely very significant about that. And it has all sorts of repercussions we should think about. I don't know if it straightforwardly leads to utopia or dystopia.
Right.
The negative way I would frame it is there isn't much going on outside of AI, outside of even, let's say, the internet and computers for the last 50 years. And so if we don't get extraordinary progress out of AI, we're not going to get it by recommissioning the Concorde or anything like that. And so probably too much is freighted on AI. And so the way, maybe one way to think about something like the Hawking or all these people, the way they talk about it, they are silently admitting that there's nothing else going on.
Right.
So if we need AI to lead to utopia or dystopia, that's sort of voce. You're admitting there's nothing else going on.
Yeah. I want to play a clip. This is of Elon Musk talking about you.
We've had our disagreements, but we are friends. And I would say for 95% of the time we've known each other, we've been friends.
I bet that 5% was rough, though, knowing both
Yeah,
of
it was
you.
a little rough. Yeah, things got a little bumpy at one point. I think I have more tolerance for risk than Peter does. So I was sort of maybe more kind of pedal to the metal, and Peter was like, well, let's be a little cautious here. He may have been right, actually.
A, is that characterization correct? Do you think he is a bigger risk taker than you? And B, is he also perhaps right that your way is probably more sensible?
I think I certainly would never want to bet against Elon. I would never want to compete head on with Elon. And that's yeah, and probably a lot of what he says is correct. Certainly, the Silicon Valley perspective on Elon in the 2000s was that he was starting these two crazy companies. There was Tesla, the car company, and SpaceX, the rocket company. They both sounded super crazy. If only one of them had succeeded, one might still have said that it was just extraordinarily lucky. The fact that to first approximation both have succeeded, have wildly succeeded. I always want to say it tells us something that Elon knows something about risk the rest of us don't. So there's some way it looks like it's this high wire crazy risk taking act, and somehow it's somehow you can't have two companies succeed in such an extraordinary way without actually really not taking as many crazy risks as it looks. And so I don't know. There's the conversation I've had with Elon is what did you know about how do you understand risk in ways that the rest of us don't? And then I think there's something he understands about it we don't. It's hard to articulate. I don't know if he can articulate it, but. That's sort of where I'm at today.
He has I met him for the first time in France this summer, and he did a little Q&A on a boat for about 15 of us, and then I had about an hour with him afterwards. Utterly fascinating just to be exposed to his brain close up like that. He was talking about colonizing Mars and why we had to do this and how it would be done. He talked about Neuralink. He talked about humanoid robots. It was just one after another of these enormous big picture things. All of which I concluded as I was hearing them, he comes from a place, it seems to me, he just wants to save the planet from itself, really. And he kind of has a brain that can get his head around this big picture stuff. But in relation to the risk, it just strikes me, he's just prepared to back himself in a way with a sort of chilling self-confidence, the like of which actually, Trump is one of the only people I've seen who has a similar sort of unbelievably thick
Wow. I love Elon Musk. I love sucking off Elon Musk too.
skin and self-confidence to do that, which is what you need because there's
Are we back? I fucked around and found out. All right, we're back. All I had to do, I went to, my internet's out. But because I'm paying for the other internet, and now I can use this. Now I can still stream. So it was all worth it. It was all worth it. I had the redundancy. I set up the redundancy, and now we use the other internet. We use the 5G internet from T-Mobile, and we're all good to go. It was all worth it. In the end, my master plan was worth it. Look how they're crashing. Look, Chainlink's still going up. They're crashing. They literally do this every time. They're crashing Bitcoin. Peter Thiel DDoSed me, but I am too smart for him. He doesn't understand using protection because that's why he has AIDS. But look at this. They're crashing Bitcoin to try to crash Chainlink, but it doesn't matter anymore. It literally doesn't matter anymore. Chainlink is ascendant. Chainlink will never be defeated now. Chainlink is going to $1,000 by the end of the year. This year. Not next year, this year. All right, back to this freak. Where are we?
that's the orientation Elon always
Peter Thiel
has.
destroyed.
What do you make about him and Vivek Ramaswamy getting stuck into government bureaucracy and waste?
W.
Red Flow has sent $5. The lust-provoking image behind you is not appreciated. You're just mining energy from the Goyim.
All right, I'll change it. You made me change it. I'll change it. Yes, I'm harvesting loosh from you.
Well, you know, the strong
I'm harvesting loosh.
consensus view in the DC establishment
I'll change
is
it.
that this is going to go nowhere, that it's, you know, it's just absolutely impossible to fix things, and this is, you know, it's going to be sort of a very, very frustrating dead end. And again, maybe, I'm not sure it's a contrarian view, but the alternate view I would say is, you know, you should never bet against Elon. And isn't there, you know, we all know there's an extraordinary amount of waste, and it is unsustainable. And the 6% of GDP deficits that the U.S. has cannot be sustained.
How's that?
Cannot even be sustained for,
How do you guys like that?
you know, even the rest of this decade. And if this election stands for the proposition, you know, there are two ways to resolve them. You can cut spending and cut waste, or you can raise taxes massively. And I take this election in the U.S. for standing for the proposition we're not going to go the European-style socialist route of having massive tax hikes. And then that suggests, you know, you need to try something like the Doge thing, and that's actually what is going to happen.
And do you think?
And again, maybe we're in a very different moment from 5 years ago, pre-COVID. You know, I think the statistic is something like,
is this better?
94% of the federal government workers are working from home. And you know what people learned in Silicon Valley, where you had remote work for 1 or 2 years, was remote work was not working. When people didn't come into the office, they weren't working. And initially, it was a sign of how powerful the workers were. They could insist on not working. And then after 2 years, the companies just fired a bunch of these people and reasserted control, because you realized, wow, there were all these people we hired and they're not working, and it doesn't matter, and we can just get rid of them.
Oy vey, the Goyim aren't
Isn't that
working.
the lesson that we should draw from these 4 or 5 years of the government workers not working?
How's that?
But, you know, not that they have to necessarily come back to the office.
Am I growing out the
Maybe we
mustache?
need
I'll
them
probably shave it
And
again.
so I think we sort of knew this was the case in 2019. We really
What's up, King
know it in
Laffy?
2024, and so there is sort of a.
Have you ever had lucid dreams? Yeah, I had lucid dreams all the time.
What Elon is doing. And
I don't dream, but when I dream, most of the time it's
obvious to
lucid.
you, and it's obvious to me.
I
and it's
very
obvious
rarely dream, but when I dream,
to
I
lots
know
of
I'm
people,
dreaming.
and it's obvious to all of us that it's obvious to everybody else. At some point, you can get a preference cascade, and maybe something can really break here.
He hinted that you and he had largely had a pretty good relationship, but it had its odd wobble. You've got him and Trump, obviously two gigantic figures with healthy egos. A lot of people think this can't last. They're bound to fall out. There's going to be.
I understand.
What do you think? What's your?
I understand the problem, but I'm moving back to this. I don't really care anymore. I tried Red Flowers. I tried.
Again, yeah, there are all these ways you're tempted to read it in these sort of soap opera terms, where, you know, we're focused on the larger than life personalities, and how is there room for two of these people on.
What's up, rapists with HIV? I like your interview with Piers Morgan.
Of questions, but I think if we take a non-soap opera view and go back to the substance and the real problems we have.
Substance, you got to pump it up.
There's plenty of work for them to do. There's plenty of them to focus on. They are, in some sense, they both have a common enemy in, you know, the zombie establishment, the stagnation, the sense that nothing's been working for quite some time, and I don't think that enemy is going to go away anytime soon.
Has the president-elect offered you a job yet?
I'm not able to, I'm not going to do anything on a full-time basis. You know, one can do things like, you know, what Elon is doing. You can't you can't go full-time into government if you've been in
Never go full-time.
in a tech position like I have.
Never go full-time into government.
The sort of things you have to be realistic about what you can and can't do.
But is there an Elon
And it's
style
also,
role?
look, it's not. It's just not my area. Of I think politics is very important.
Politics sucks. It's for losers.
I would find it deeply frustrating. I would go out of my mind if I spend all my time doing about it. So I think it's super important. I enjoy going on your show, thinking about it every now and then. If I spent my whole life thinking about this, man, I'd be depressed and crazy.
Do you know how much you're worth?
Probably roughly, I don't know. Yeah, roughly.
It's
hard to say. It's
I've read so many different figures. I mean, what would be the rough ballpark if you were to?
147 million, 148 million dollars.
I don't know. It's most of it is in illiquid private tech companies. So, I don't know. Probably more than 10 billion, less than 20.
Ooh.
I mean, that's
nice. Very is all worth it.
Red Flow has sent $5. So last time I was watching, you subjected us to hours of Yarvin's lesbian face.
So you're complaining that...
What's PTN goal?
You're complaining that I have a sexy bunny behind me. You said it, not me. You said sexy bunny that you found sexually attractive. Now you're complaining that you don't have a sexy bunny, that you have an ugly guy, an ugly gay guy. I don't get it. What's your end goal? That's my question. It's not me. What's my end goal? It's yours. What's yours, dude?
a staggering sum of money. When you look at that footage of you 30 years ago, did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that one day you would be worth, around $15 billion?
Yeah, it's maybe I imagined that when I was 10 years old or 12 years old. Probably not when I was 25.
You knew by then that you were onto stuff that was going to be wildly successful.
No, I think I don't know. As a young person, you can be very ambitious, and I was extraordinarily ambitious in some ways, or had extremely high hopes as a
thank you, edgy nigga,
teenager, middle school, high school student, and then probably, I don't know. By the time I was 25, I had some kind of I'd gone to law school, worked in a big law firm, and probably had a serious quarter-life crisis by my mid-20s, where the expectations were so reduced from where they were when I was, say, 16 or 17 years old.
Really, that's fascinating. So when you were late teens then, what was the big dream?
It's complicated.
How much a chain they going to be tomorrow? How does $38 sound to you? Now 10 times that. Now 10x that. Do you have an idea now?
I think, I don't know, I'm always bad at introspection and autobiography, but it would be something like I was incredibly tracked, and my junior year, 8th grade yearbook, my best friend wrote in it, 4 years from now you're going to go to Stanford. And then I went to Stanford, and I got into Stanford Law School, and I got into a top law firm in Manhattan. And then from the outside, it was a place where everybody wanted to get in. From the inside, it was a place where everybody wanted to get out.
Another turn of phrase. Another hilarious, ironic turn of phrase. We were promised a flying car. All we got were 140 characters. Stanford was a place everybody from the outside wanted to get in. But from the inside, everybody wanted to get out. Another high IQ turn of phrase. And thank you, Paul, for making us rich. You're welcome.
There was some way that, maybe it's a harsh way to put it, but
I thought crypto was over. Why would it be over?
Caught up in the status, the prestige of these conventionally.
Paul, are you seeing that fuckable bunny? Is it cool if I get a taste of the wet ass pussy? Yeah, go for it, John David Irving. Go for the WAP, dude. It's crazy how you made Nick cancel AFPAC 4.5, so I didn't have to beat you up. It's crazy you made Nick cancel the AFPAC 4.5, and now he's dealing with all the lawsuits of people not getting refunds. Just so I wouldn't beat you up. That's crazy. That's crazy, John Dave Irving.
Tracked careers, and And then at some point, I, in my mid to late 20s, shifted back to Silicon Valley, became an investor, entrepreneur, and was able to somehow restart my life. But yeah, I don't know. I have all these, I have all these crazy critiques of the universities. But I think
Big Bongo, I don't even know who you are, dude. You're a freak.
the critique of the elite universities, the Stanfords, the Harvards, the Oxbridge ones in the UK, is that they are really shortchanging the elite. And if you look at your average Stanford student,
Or anybody who talks about the elite all day is not elite, okay? There's a lot of people who aren't elite who don't talk about being elite, but the people who talk about elite this, elite that, elite this, elite that, it's so crass and it's so Jewish and it's so gay and it's not elite. You'll never be elite. Look, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to be honest with you. German people will never be elite in America, all right? Anglos are elite. The German people are peasants, okay? Look, I'm part German. I'm like half German, okay? That's life. That's life. And the other half is Irish. So it's not, neither, but Germans are like a hardworking, like very kind, very honest, very hardy, sturdy people. They're not elite people. They're not elites. They never will be elites. And that's okay. Even Austrians who are also German, who pretend they're not German. Austrians are German, and they're more elite than Germans. But Austrians are like the only ones who can maybe potentially be elite. But anybody who's German can never be elite. You'll never be elite. And that's fine, all right? I'm never going to be elite. Germans will never be elite. Germans are like hardy, good, hardworking people, honest people.
how ambitious they are the day they get in, and how ambitious they are 2, 3, 4 years after they graduate, so 6 to 8 years later.
Pearson gave me a hand job at AFPAC 4. Is that real? Wait until I'm gonna take a screenshot and send it to Chris Burnett. Chris Burnett needs to know about this. But yeah, Germans, Jews, Anglos are really the only people who can be elite, and they're not elite really. They're gay and retarded. The time for the elites is over. The time for the elites is completely over. There's no elite group anymore. There are elite individuals, but there's no more elite groups. Everything's too chaotic. Everything's way too chaotic to have elites anymore.
Catastrophic decline.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing, all right? I'm not saying it as an insult. I think it's good not to be elite. It's good to be like a normal person with a job or a talent and hard work, or being hardy, being normal, working on things, being a good, honest person with a real job who isn't just like a loser or like a clown. I think it's a good thing to do. You know, it's better for your soul. But that's not elite. It never will be elite, okay?
And you are...
The Germans who came to America, they refused, they came along the coast, right, the East Coast, but they would land in certain areas and they would go further west, because that's why like a lot of the Midwest is German, is they would go further west because the people already here were using slaves, and the Germans refused to use slaves. They didn't believe in slavery. And so they said, hey, we're not going to actually be here. We're going to go further west after we landed, because guess what? We don't believe in slavery. We don't believe that we should be in charge of people and controlling them. And, you know, that's not elite, all right? Elite is like, where they're slaves, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's not, elite people are not like, well, we should do the hard work ourselves because it's wrong. It's bad for the soul to not do the hard work. That's not elite behavior. Cowboys are not elite, right? They're cool. Most cool people are not elite. Germans are very cool. I like Germans a lot, but they're not elite ever.
What's basically beaten into you in these places.
Barron Trump, though, he's elite. No, Barron Trump's mother is a literal prostitute, dude. Barron Trump's mother is literally like a girl who's naked and did porn. That's not elite. All right, I'm sorry. You're not going to be elite when you're like, your mother is a Czechoslovakian like prostitute. That's not elite, dude. I'm sorry.
You know, a loss of agency, a sense that you can't do anything.
He's nice. I like Barron Trump, and I like Melania Trump. And, you know, very, very cool. Very, very good. Like, Melania and Barron both seem like the nicest of the Trump people, like, who I honestly hope have great lives. But, you know, somebody who's like a Czechoslovakian prostitute or like a Playboy model is not elite. It's just like a woman who's probably a nice person, who's also like kind of like Eastern European.
The
And I'm sure Barron Trump is very nice too. Barron Trump seems like a very nice person. I hope everything goes well for him. But no, you're not elite, dude. You can't be elite. All right, and that's not a problem. Okay, it's not a big deal. When I say somebody's elite, I can't even think of any elite people. Like the only people I can think of that are elite now would be like the British royal family, and they suck. So that's not even an insult. But like the only elite people are maybe like Swedish royalty, and like the Swedish princess is marrying a black man. Okay, the Swedish princess is married to a black man. The Swedish prince is a wigger who got arrested for stabbing his girlfriend to death. He's a literal wigger. That's elite. That's royalty, okay? So I wouldn't say that it's a good thing to be elite. You know, I'd much rather be something like Baron's a lot more respectable than the Swedish prince who's like a wigger, or the Swedish princess who married a black man. You know what I mean? Or like Prince Edward who married Meghan Markle and is getting divorced after she took him for the cleaners. That's not elite, right? That is technically elite. That's like gay. The elite is gay.
The things people are taught to aspire to are especially bad dead-end careers. So, you know, it's probably...
Jews pursue eliteness for its own sake instead of being recognized, but for pursuing something for the thing itself. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. It's like beauty, right? Beauty emanates from, like, good genetics. Fundamental, real beauty. And good genetics, good life choices. But then people who are not good looking, they'll get, like, a bunch of surgery. They'll get a Brazilian butt lift. They'll get filler. They'll get Botox. They'll get, like, stuff pulled back. They'll get Peter Thiel, right? And that's not beauty, right? That's gross. It's like putting perfume on a rotting, like, flower. You know, beauty and elite status, it's like stuff it's from being a quality person. But, you know, for its sake, if you're chasing it, it's like youth. If you appreciate youth while you're young, that's really good. If you appreciate youth when you're old and you try to stay young forever, that's pathetic, right? It's a thing. It's a thing that's secondary. It's a symptom of something. But trying to it's chasing a phantasm. It's stupid. It's foolish. It's chasing something that you can't have when you're just chasing being elite for no reason. And it's foolish. McGain's W chat, best chat in the entire live chat of the entire week.
Somewhat reduced, but there was always sort of this prestige of becoming a professor, and then you get caught up in I don't know, this crazy sort of malfeasance.
Yeah, eliteness is something that you know when you see it. It's like pornography. Well, what's porn? Well, you'll know it when you see it. It's secondary to something.
Where you know, even the winners are kind of loserly. So yeah, I think there's something about the socialization of these institutions.
It's like people going to college, right? Those aren't the elite. I'm sorry. People going to Harvard, people going to Stanford, people going to whatever. They're not elite anymore. It's for Asians, it's for Jews, it's for Indians and Jews. That's who go, and like gay people and rich kids. It's not actually for like high class elite people. It's for people who have money. And, you know, the less white it gets, you know, the only reason those places were elite was because it was for only white people. The moment it became not available to non-whites and non-whites started dominating and Chinese people were there, it wasn't elite. Anything that Jews, Chinese, and Indians are run will never be elite, okay? That's just true. It's just literally true. The moment you have Jews, Asians, you have Chinese people, you have Indians, Jewish people, and they have a good say. They're allowed to be there. Whatever it is, whatever event it is, whatever business, it's not elite. It's not elite anymore. If they're running things, if they have high status there, everything is low. It's low status. They're low status people. I'm sorry.
That's really destructive of ambition.
Pride of the dolls, what the elite look like.
And that has really not served our societies well.
That's true, Nephilim.
About being extremely rich.
Again, I'm not good at. I'm so bad at this introspection stuff.
Gay guy is bad at introspection. Please surprise me again.
You know, one always has the illusion that
Paul, stop saying Jews can't be elite. Most of them are scumbags, but a few are very elite. Okay, you're elite. All right, Latin stars. Listen, you're an exception. All right. You're an exception that proves the rule. You're elite and you're Jewish. So it does count, all right? It's called the exception that proves the rule. There obviously are always exceptions. There are always exceptions, you're right. But those exceptions prove the rule.
Money can solve all problems, and it obviously it can't.
Sam Hyde, elite.
you know, there's sort of
Marky
all these
Mark,
ways
elite.
that it's probably, in some ways it's a good thing to have money. In some
Oh,
ways,
am I elite? Yes, you're elite, Tal, bro. Everybody in my chat is elite.
you know, in some ways it's socially isolating. In some ways you don't.
Anybody who watches my streams, unironically, is elite. Everybody else, like normal streams are for like scum and subhumans, but the people who watch my streams are elite actually. Except for Big Bongo. Big Bongo is not elite.
One doesn't even want to be fully aware of how much it's changed, how much it changes the relationships with people. And
Dude, you're elite. Sneed them, feed them.
So there are all sorts of things about it that are, you know, extreme and strange.
Big Bongo's white trash. That's true, Mexican Zoomer. If we could replace all the white trash that's like Big Bongo with Mexicans like Mexican Zoomer, America would be a lot better off. You know, call me racist, call me anti-white. But if I could push a button to kill all the Big Bongos in the world and replace them with Mexican Zoomers, I would be slamming that button so hard. You'd think that button was a give me money button. Check this out. It's almost at $30. Wow. Wow, just like I predicted. Anyway, back to this freak.
But I try, you know, and there's sort of there are no straightforward ways to deal with it. You can, if you just become sort of a paranoid rich person where you don't trust anybody, that seems like a high cost. And then I sort of probably.
Yeah, you think that button was Judy Hopps. Very funny, Mackle's.
Self-aware rich person who wants to pretend.
Like Macklemore, but the opposite.
And that's I'm self-aware enough to know that that's not correct. But I'm not self-aware enough not to do that.
I heard somebody, it was a celebrity, a big actor, I can't remember who it was, and they said when you get really famous, it's not you that changes, it's everybody else in your world changes because they find it really hard to adjust to suddenly you being very famous. Is it the same kind of thing when you get very rich? It's like, and very successful? Is it not really about you? It's more about everybody around you?
Yeah, that's always what people say. I don't know if we should trust them. You know, it's
probably a bit of both.
Yeah, that's obviously what the celebrities would say about fame and what you know the billionaires would say about money. That it's always about other people, but it's probably always not about just other people or about yourself, but it's always this complex social relationship.
You sold your Facebook shares. You were obviously on the board there for many, many years. You were one of the first investors. You sold your shares for $638 million in 2012 when the IPO came up. Had you stuck with them, you would have made another $2 billion. Does that eat away at you, or given that you've got another 15, does it not really touch the sides of your sleep pattern?
I don't know. Yes.
Dude, I'm not paying attention. This is loser stuff.
I think.
Oh, bro.
I think one of the things that was very hard to gauge on the big tech companies, and there was a way I understood it and a way I did not, was just how they were going to scale and scale and scale, and how the returns to scale were so enormous, and I don't know, there was you could think of it in almost a fractal sense where you add one digit to the market capitalization of a company, and how hard is it to add a digit? How hard is it to go from a company worth 10 million to 100 million? Facebook was worth 5 million in 2004. It was worth 85 million in 2005, 525 million in 2006, 15 billion in 2007. It went a little bit sideways, was worth still around 10 billion in 2009.
Dude, who cares? I don't even know what you're saying, but who cares, dude?
Around 100 billion.
What type of loser is interested in whatever they're talking about? And why does he have an eyebrow going up to this weird curve in his skull? Why is his skull curved this way? Bro has a skull built like Herman Munster. All right. Why does he look like white Herman Munster?
At the IPO in 2012, today it's 1.5 trillion.
Hairline looks fake. Oh, you think the homosexual billionaire has a hair transplant? You're telling me the homosexual billionaire has a hair transplant? What are you gonna say next? That he has AIDS?
And probably the incorrect view I had back in 2012 was that it was fractal up to 100 billion, and so you could go from 10 to 100 million to a billion to 10
Bro thinks he's
billion
Brian Johnson,
to
true.
100 billion, and those were each difficult, but each equally difficult steps. But somehow going from 100 billion to a trillion was maybe much harder, and maybe in retrospect, going from 100 billion to a trillion was actually the easiest of the orders of magnitude, because once you were at 100 billion, in some sense, you'd gotten to a big enough scale that it was easy to scale. It was relatively easy to do the next order of magnitude scale. Nobody thought people were going to do it. So it was somehow both, as an investor, you always want to invest in things that are true.
That are going to make you money. You got to invest in things that are going to make you money.
And so somehow going from 100 billion to a trillion was the easiest. People thought it was the hardest. And so that combination suggests that that was actually sort of in some sense, the lowest risk order of magnitude to scale. And that's certainly something I did not conceive of back in 2012.
Was that your biggest mistake as an investor, getting out of Facebook too early?
Oh, man, there probably are all sorts of mistakes, but you don't stress about them that much.
But Mark Zuckerberg doesn't tease you about it.
It's the biggest mistake people make is never making mistakes.
Yeah.
And and so I don't know. I've probably made a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of things I've gotten wrong conceptually. There are ideas I have that they're not always correct. There are all sorts of things where you, I'd say I don't know. I think this is a little bit too abstract, but probably the big mistake I feel.
My biggest mistake, getting AIDS from having gay sex with men. My biggest mistake, having so much gay sex that I caught AIDS and died.
Not made is living a life of making no mistakes ever.
Yes. That reminds me of my favorite quote, which was Wayne Gretzky, the Canadian ice hockey genius, who said, "You'll miss 100% of the shots you never take."
Yes.
That's really what you're getting at, right?
Yes, and something like that, and
Yo, $30 chain link. $30 chain link. Who said it? Who said it was gonna happen? Who told you? Who said? Who told you? Tonight, $30 chain link. Was it me or was it me? It was me. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Where it's crashing. It's crashing. See how they're literally crashing. They're crashing Bitcoin to try to crash Chainlink. They're literally trying to destroy Chainlink, but it's not working. What you're watching right now is history. You're watching all the wealth from Bitcoin at $100,000 leave Bitcoin to enter a new hero, a new star, the new #1 coin in the crypto market, Chainlink. All the crypto that was in money was in Bitcoin is being sold and transferred to Chainlink. And what's going to happen is a flippening, the great flippening, before the end of the week. And that's soon. That's in the next 3 or 4 days, if I had to guess. Before the end of the week, you'll watch as these prices switch. These prices completely flip. This is worth $99,000, and this is worth $30. Wake up. Smell the coffee. That's what's happening right now. Either tap in or you're going to tap out soon.
Yeah, no, it is. It's I don't know. It's. I think that yeah, I don't know. There's always, one of the questions I always get asked is, do you consider yourself lucky? And I always like to deflect that question because it's kind of, it always feels like a trick question to me, where if I say I'm not lucky, that sounds like I'm really, being dishonest.
I'm not lucky, I'm good.
Say I'm lucky, that sounds too self-deprecating.
Bitcoin to $0, sir.
Reflected.
Do not redeem.
I consider myself to be very fortunate.
Bloody bastard,
Fortune
bitch.
is something that you participate in making, and luck is more something that's outside of you. So I consider myself not lucky, but very fortunate.
How much did fatherhood and has fatherhood changed you?
Bro, this guy's a kid? How does this guy have a kid? Yeah, you poop him out? They poop up out the baby? Bro pooped out a baby. That's crazy.
Man.
How much is gay sex? And that resulted in a child. Very odd. How does a homosexual have a child?
It certainly gives you a
So odd, dude. So freakish.
man, it gives you a very different perspective. It pushes you to ask questions you weren't.
Dude, his eye sockets are so weird. Look at this. Literally like Herman Munster. Bitcoin getting cheated? Yeah, Bitcoin's getting crashed because they're trying to stop Chainlink. Okay, they're trying to stop Chainlink from getting to $1,000. Bitcoin's getting cheated right now. All right, 99,000. How about 9,000? $99,000. How about $900 and 15 cents? Because they need to stop Chainlink from the God Candle. The lore is the God Candle. They're trying to... I'm going to red pill you on some lore. There's a God Candle coming up for Chainlink. And they're trying to stop the God Candle, okay? And they're going to do everything they can to stop the God Candle. Anyway, back to the gay guy with children.
You weren't asking before.
Paul, do you think Cozy will make a comeback? No, I don't think so. I don't really think so, honestly. I think there's a few people who are gonna win. It's like me, it's Nick, a few other people, but most people just don't have it in them. Most people don't have it in them to scam and to stream.
Like what?
There's something about kids that's always extraordinary. Where in some ways,
The heck?
you see yourselves in them. They're
The heck? What did he mean when he say in some ways you see yourselves in the child?
ways in which
There's some way in which you see yourself inside the child.
they each are their own unique individual person.
Ralph carried Cozy. That's
There's
true.
something extraordinary about how 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old experiences the world for the first time, and there's a sense of wonder, and there's a way you get to vicariously, or you get to participate in that some as a parent. So it's there's sort of a way that
It's so weird. It's like these people should just been gay uncles. Like that's literally what it used to be in the old days. It's like, yeah, you'd have some guy who's like gay, and everybody kind of knows it, but he's himself, but he's successful, and he ends up just being like the fun gay uncle that you don't really know. Like the kids don't really know that they're gay. He's gay until later, and he doesn't really do anything. He just kind of comes by and then just buys nice gifts for the kids, and he enjoys this seeing the world through their eyes, but it's not creepy and weird. It's just like, yeah, well, this is what he does. You know what I mean? Now it's weird. Now it's like, well, let's kidnap a child. Let's put our sperm inside a woman and like create a freak baby.
there's obviously a lot of
like Tim Dillon.
complexity around children, and there are a lot of different ways in which people find it hard or choose not to have children. But there is sort of a way in which, as an adult, there's always a risk that you get caught up in this sort of adults-only world that has sort of a Groundhog Day quality to it, and there's a way in which children bring one back to reality. And of course,
there goes gravity there.
it gives you some very different perspectives on the future. My oldest will be 81 years old in the year 2100, and man, it's I wasn't sure that the world was going to last till 2030.
Right.
Before I had her, and I'm still not sure, but
Freaky.
We're going to have to.
Well, at least it's a girl. Honestly, if it's a girl, he's not gonna do anything. If it's a gay guy and it's a girl, a child, I mean, that's really the only. I wouldn't make an exception, but if I had to make an exception, like if it's two gay guys and they want to adopt a child, then let them adopt a girl because it's not gonna do anything to a girl. You know what I mean? So I would say that's fine. Honestly, make an exception for child, like because what are they gonna do? It's just a girl.
Figure out a way to.
But you don't need to do that because, there's enough straight people who want to have kids. There's enough straight people who want to adopt that, you don't need to go to gay people.
To make it through the 21st century.
There's a lot of rumors that you are dedicated to living a very long time and defying the aging process, that you're quite obsessed about it all.
Yeah, what does it have to do with urban?
Sorts of weird little routines and potions and stuff. Any of that true? I mean, you look in extremely good nick.
The bro looks extremely good. He looks extremely healthy. The glazing.
I don't know if I have any particularly strong insights into it.
You look extremely healthy, sir. Sir, you look extremely healthy and good looking. And extremely very healthy and very good looking, sir. Please don't throw me off your roof.
I do think that one of the great projects of early modernity.
You look super healthy, sir. Please don't kill me.
The radical life extension project. There was a personal immortality version of it. There was sort of, or at least this idea that all sorts of diseases would be cured. I still believe in that project as something that we should be working on.
No, the reality is it's not cures, it's prevention. Prevention is the only cure. Preventing bad things from happening is the only cure. And I'm too old now. You, if you're around my age, are too old. But like, at a certain point, we'll get it to where it's like you can stop somebody at 20, 23, 24, their physical health, and just put pause on it and they can live forever. Or maybe they can live 1,000 years. But I'm too old now. I'm 30 and other people are way too old.
Very hard.
But that's the real cure. It's not going back in time. It's pushing pause.
The society, I can at the same time, believe that.
Oh, look. What's that? What's that? Oh, is that the God candle starting? Oh, is that the God candle starting to form right here? Oh, is that what I told you? The God candle was happening? What's that? Oh, it's the God candle? Okay.
That project has gone very sideways, and there are.
I did say that, King Laffy. Rewind the tape.
We're really not succeeding at it, and there's sort of all sorts of ways where it's somehow, the descriptive level and the normative level can be very, very disconnected, and so it's I don't know, you can go, and then you can go into all sorts of specifics, but it's sort of like Nixon declared war on cancer.
If this happens, I'll listen to you next time. I told you.
1971, it was going to.
Did you listen to the Netspend album? No, he's like too gay.
U.S. by.
Oh, hey, look. Oh, is it the God candle happening? Oh, is it the God candle happening that I told you about earlier, about an hour ago? That the God candle? Oh, what's that? The God candle? Ooh, link to $4,000 tonight. It's happening tonight. It's happening tonight. Wake up. Wake up.
Bicentennial by 1976. So we're now, 53 years in. And
imagine not putting all your money into it right now.
5 years away. And so, and so there's sort of, it would be desirable for us to cure it. And then at the same time, we're in this world of, too much science propaganda that hasn't quite worked. I think there's something extraordinary about the failure to make progress on things like dementia.
Yeah.
And so there are all these different areas where we could be making much more progress. If you do a bigger cultural history on this, you could say early modernity in the 17th, 18th century forms. The mainstream scientists believed in the radical life extension project. It was Sir Francis Bacon, it was Condorcet, it was Benjamin Franklin in the United States. And then by the 19th and 20th centuries, this becomes maybe it becomes more of a fringe science view, but is still sort of a part of it. It has there's sort of religious dimensions to all this stuff where it's in some ways it's downstream of Christianity. In some ways it's...
Who's this young stallion? This is Brian Johnson's younger brother. You know that 15-year-old child, Brian Johnson? This is his 12-year-old son. His 12-year-old brother, Peter Thiel. Peter Johnson. He's 12 years old. You might have thought he was only 6 or 7, but he's actually 12. And he's Brian Johnson, the 15-year-old. You know, that guy.
Christian. In some ways it's anti-Christian because Christianity tells you that death is not natural and that we can all have hopes to be physically resurrected. And then if science was either downstream of Christianity or competing with Christianity, science had to also solve this problem. And so this was one of the
What's this? What's this? What's this? Half a year ago, I said, if you're not putting all your money into Chainlink right now, you're an idiot. I also said I stole my girlfriend's bank details and took out a business loan in her name and put all that money into Chainlink. What the heck? Am I right again? Or am I right again? Is my IQ tapped in or what? My IQ is so good for certain things. Every once in a while, it just clicks. My IQ just clicks and it solves a problem and I see the future like that.
Things that science had to do, and
lucky guess and admission to a crime.
Fringier things that was still had a decent number of adherents was early 20th century.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clone myself. I'm gonna take my semen, my genetics, my DNA. Sorry, I'll take my DNA, create a clone of myself, and then I'm gonna have a robot. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grow it into like a child, and then I'll have a robot tie us both down, knock us both out, and put my adult brain inside the child body of myself. And then every 30, 40, 50, 60 years, I'll just replace my brain, my body with a young version of myself and just swap out the brains. And I'll always be alive. Isn't that a good idea?
Movement that's sort of adjacent to communism was this thing called cosmism. And the cosmists in the 1910s, 1920s argued that science would fail unless it physically resurrected all the dead. And because it was directly competitive with Christianity, but then in some ways Christianity also set the normative standards that death should not be.
But you'll always be from the past? What does that mean?
Natural death should be fought. Death was fundamentally wrong and evil. Not natural, not what the classical.
You mentioned Chainlink over half a year ago? Oh, yeah, of course I mentioned Chainlink over half a year ago.
Yeah, the communist slogan was "Workers, the world unite." The cosmists was "Dead of the world unite." And then, of course, by the time you get to the 1930s and Stalin, and you're not actually making progress on radical life extension, and you're just killing tens of millions of people in the gulags, it's not quite.
Wow, the gulags.
And
the goulash.
And then, perhaps the place where
your brain can't live forever. Maybe yours can't. Maybe your brain can't live forever.
Culturally collapsed more recently is, I often think that maybe the baby boomers, were the last generation in the United States in which radical life extension was not a mainstream.
Will Link hit $50? Yeah, dude, Link is gonna hit like $700, $800, dude. Like literally, it's gonna hit $700, $800, and you're all gonna cry and piss your pants and moan and whine.
So in 1999, I don't know. This was a internet bubble event we did in Silicon Valley, but one of my PayPal co-founders had this idea that we should take the whole company to a freezing party, and it was like a Tupperware party is a party where people sell Tupperware. A freezing party was one where they sold cryonics policies. And
Suey going to $300. Well, Suey, the only problem with Suey is I'm too old, and every time I see Suey, I think of suicide. I think of like Suicide Stack, and that makes me think of Link. Every time I see Suey, I think of suicide, like killing yourself. You know what I mean? And so I literally just can't comprehend ever buying it. I don't even know what it is. I just think of suicide whenever I see it.
And it was a little bit disturbing because they couldn't get the
No linkers are about to be destroyed, dude.
The policy, so there was sort of some concern about how well
You have 100 chain link? Yeah, you'll be good, dude.
Bionics would work if you couldn't get the printer to work. But there was still, there was still a fringe belief among, mostly boomer people. We can criticize them for being this narcissistic, selfish generation, but
Cheat Chomper, you're goated, dude. You're gonna get so rich.
Boomer belief that if you worked hard enough, you personally could live forever, and then there are strange ways in which that's gotten exhausted. So I don't know. This is the slightly complicated thing I would articulate is that I still believe we should, can work on this radical project.
But it's not going to work.
We have to somehow also be honest and say that it has gone extraordinarily off track. And there are very strange ways that it goes off track. It's sort of when if science promises mastery over death, and if that's one of the things science sets as its goal, and then as science fails to do that, maybe the way you achieve mastery over death is that you don't invest in new medicines, but you invest in eugenics or things like that, where if you're not going to live forever, you can be like Denethor, the Mad Steward in Lord of the Rings, where you can light your own funeral fire and set the hour of your death. And so,
whoa!
So you can think of, it's a complicated
whoa, that's so cool, dude.
Debate about the pros and cons of
Do you want to freeze yourself,
what it means. And
Peter?
I'm probably more sympathetic to the Catholic view on it, but on a descriptive level, the fact that we're having a debate about
all right, and I'm Alric, don't say that. Nick's gonna get a lawsuit if you say that.
Of how much the modern science project has gone off, that where all that they can do is in hospitals is kill people instead of focusing on helping them live forever.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's a big debate in the UK. In fact, the Parliament here has just voted at the first stage to bring in effectively legalised euthanasia, where if you get two doctors and a judge to agree and you're in the last 6 months of terminal illness, you can be put to death. And that's just past the first stage, so it's likely to become law here.
My views on this would be pretty close to the Catholic Church's views, which would be to be quite skeptical of this and think there's something very, very off with this. But then probably the two layers I would add to it would be something like this: science and tech. What does it tell us about science and technology? It tells us, man, we're really not.
Paul has watched this interview for 3 hours, 2 hours actually. 2 hours. I've been really enjoying it. I've been learning a lot. I always learn a lot from all the tech NRX people. I always feel like when I watch the interviews with like Peter Thiel or Moldbug or Mark Andreessen, I really learn a lot, and I really kind of like my brain grows. My brain grows really powerful.
And then maybe there's always an economic set of questions that I would also zero in on, where if you have a socialized healthcare system like you have in the UK, does that often have a tendency to end up with what Sarah Palin described in the U.S. People thought she was crazy, but it does always end with rationing and death panels. And so is this just the logic of the NHS that if you have to socialize the costs, you need to ration them, and then if the science can't come up with a cheap immortality pill, the rationing means that you want people in the NHS system or whatever the socialized healthcare system is to encourage patients to maybe take the exit option rather than taking an expensive surgery.
What do you want to do when you die? Do you want to freeze yourself just in case they find a way of reviving you down the road?
Such a hard question.
I would like to.
It's such a hard question.
Again, I don't think it's inconsistent for me to be both Christian and
be a gay dude. I think it's inconsistent for me to be a sodomite / Christian / open homosexual / murderer / whatever.
Believe in a personal resurrection in Christianity, and to push science at the same time. And I used to always feel.
He's actually Christian. He's not Christian. He just says that. He just says that to try to come off as normal. Like tries to come off as like not like offensive to normal people, because he understands the rabble can get upset about things and cause you problems. So he tries to come off as normal. He's not actually Christian.
I used to always feel a little bit guilty about it, like you're hedging your bets, or like you don't really believe in one or the other if you believe in both. And then, but then I think I don't know, the modern atheism has collapsed to where they believe in neither. They believe in neither science,
which is so
nor
depressing.
religion, and so
I mean, I'm a Catholic, but I agree with you. Why wouldn't you make every, I hope that I'm right, that there's a God out there and there's a life after that's fantastic. I hope that's right. But I mean, I don't see any reason why you couldn't just as a side bet, freeze yourself. Sounds to me like you might consider it.
Sure. I think I'm actually signed up for, I'm signed up for a cryonics policy. I don't particularly think this works, but it was, again, more just almost an ideological statement that, I want to do more, and we should be trying to do more in all of these different dimensions. But yeah, look, I think the way I would relate it to Christianity is that perhaps there is no rational way to think about one's mortality, and so if you are an atheist who believes that this is the only life you have and then it will be over, the way you deal with it is not rationally by thinking about it. If you think about it, you will go insane.
Nigga, I ain't paying attention to this freak. All right, let's listen some more. Let's pay more attention to this.
Right.
You deal with it by avoiding it, by not thinking about it.
Yes.
And then this sort of psychological avoidance mechanism, one of the things it results in is you don't even do the science anymore. At some point, it's like to actually work really hard on the science. Yeah, rationally, you're correct. You should be working on the science in order to live forever. But you'd have to think about your death too much to work on the science, and that would disturb you so much. So I think the atheists are not even able to work on the science anymore.
So I assume you believe you believe in God, do you?
I would describe myself as a Christian. Yes, I always think God is. I believe in Christ. I think God is a. We don't know
Genius.
that much about God, and the Christian view is you can only have knowledge of God through Christ.
Genius. Well, he's just a philosopher. He just knows everything, huh?
If you're strictly monotheistic in Judaism, Islam, you end up you have a certain picture of God, but it's very, very fuzzy, and God is in a deep sense not knowable. So I'm Trinitarian Christian, and that's how I would anchor my knowledge on God.
Do you pray?
So it's not belief about God that matters. It's what we need is knowledge about God.
Right. But do you pray in that case or not?
Not as much as I should.
Never prays. Never prays.
Right. Now, I wanted to talk to you about the two stories in the news this week. One of which you got.
Whenever he starts to pray, he starts to smell brimstone. He starts to hear screams of dead people and brimstone. He starts to smell it in his nose.
By circumstance, but the first one was the incident on the subway with this Marine veteran who restrained somebody who then sadly died, who'd just been acquitted. What did you think of that story? Because it seemed to me, if we went back 20, 30 years,
kind of for Halo, promote good free press.
Hero, and yet there was a concerted effort on the left to paint.
Paul, same question for you. Do you pray? Yeah, of course. Of course I pray. Of course I pray. I pray to get rich. I pray to be healthy. I pray to get rich. I pray for to make wise decisions. I pray to get rich, really rich. I pray to make a lot of money. I pray to be healthy.
He is a white supremacist, a villain, a criminal, a murderer, and so on, from people like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez and right the way down. What did you make of that story?
Man, I always don't know enough about particulars of these stories, and then it somehow matters. It matters. The specifics matter a great deal.
Right.
But yes, so with the caveat that I don't know that much about the particulars on it. Yeah, my instincts are that if we don't have people like that standing up against crime in a sort of citizen's capacity, I don't think of him as a vigilante. I think of him as as a crime stopper, and and you'd have you'll have a far more violent world if you stop people like that than if you than if you don't. And so that's where I think the intuitions seem very, very wrong.
Yeah.
And then I don't the AOC thing seems so great. It's almost like
Is Piers secretly based? No, he's not secretly based. Piers is always gonna be like middle of the road, a little bit left wing, or middle of the road, a little bit right wing. He's never gonna actually. He's just a talking head. He's a fat blob.
You want to create more crime. You want to create more chaos, or something like that. And I don't know if it's fully that intentional, but that's
good for you, Big Bongo.
Well, I just found it extraordinary that a Democratic congresswoman would go on record as calling it immediately murder, which is what she did. And you think, what message are you sending to people who are on a subway that is already crime-ridden, and you see something like this happen?
You should ask Peter Thiel if he hates black people.
Women and children terrified. 9 out of the 11 witnesses all said it was the most terrifying thing they'd ever been exposed to on the subway. And you get this one guy who intervenes and stops what may have been a horrific incident. And he's branded a murderer by a lawmaker in America. And you just think, well, what message are you trying to send to people? That you can never intervene to try and protect women and children on a subway? Is that really what you want to say to Americans? I just found that the most baffling part of it.
Yeah, it's probably incorrect to impute too much intentionality to it. I always wonder whether it's a crazy version of liberal elitism, a la the ridiculous Mayor Bloomberg of New York and things like this, where it's sort of like why it serves people right for riding the subway. Why do these people need to ride the subway? And maybe they should be. And then this is what happens to people who, and so there's always something about liberalism that I think, in both its environmental forms and in its anti-crime forms, that's extraordinarily elitist, because the elite liberal answer is it doesn't affect you if you're not on the subway or if you're in a nice secure building in Manhattan. And so it's a way to increase class differences. And then this is the way. This would be like, I don't know, a conservative or even a Marxist critique of AOC is that she's it's sort of like a extreme upper class elitist thing in a way for her to say.
Completely agree. The other big story, of course, has been the murder of the healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson.
What do you guys think? Agree or disagree?
You were dragged into this, like I said, through no fault of your own. But
it's psychotic.
The alleged killer shared a video which featured you. Let's take a look at this.
I think there's this very strange phenomenon in Silicon Valley where a lot of the most talented startups, a lot of the great startups, seem to be run by people who are suffering from a mild form of Asperger's. And I think we need to always.
Bro, the veins are so crazy. The veins traveling across his head.
Turn this fact around and view this as an indictment of our whole society. Because what does it say about our society when anyone who does not suffer from Asperger's, who is socially well adapted, will be talked out of all of their original creative ideas before they're even fully formed, who will sense this is a little bit too weird, that's a little bit strange, that sounds a little bit crazy, people are looking at me in a weird way. And I think this is something that we must all realize is sort of a deeply endemic problem.
When you heard that he'd done this shooter, alleged shooter, Luigi
I'd not heard. This is the first time I'm hearing, Piers, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So can you explain to me what the link was?
Yeah, so the person who is alleged to have shot and killed the healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, Luigi Mangione, on his social media feed, amongst many things.
The proper answer is like, I don't care. It's like, yeah, of course, mentally ill people are gonna. Okay, people agree with me. Okay, who cares? Hitler also drank water. Does that mean it's bad?
He retweeted stuff by Elon and others, but also by you, including that video clip of you. He just happened to post it and urge his followers to listen to it. So your name just got pulled into it purely by that reason. What's your reaction to that?
Man, it's I don't know. There's always a part of me that thinks articulating certain views is always very dangerous, and it can, obviously there are all these anti-free speech arguments that we should restrict speech because it's going to trigger people in all kinds of crazy ways.
That's like Brian Thompson. Triggered.
I would have never thought that saying something like that would be.
We got drones in New York City.
It was not, by the way, a pro-Asperger's comment. It was more a commentary on how there's something that's gone very haywire in a lot of the socialization process.
Peter Thiel understands the sadistic urge.
Processes that we have, where if people pick up on social cues, they somehow end up going down these very conventional career tracks, becoming MBAs, going down these very, very track jobs. But man, I do not straightforwardly understand how that's connected to what he did.
Well, I don't think it is actually, to be fair. I think it's one of the things that he posted. So in fact, thanks to Elon, initially his X feed was deleted by some